Hello everybody, here we are today talking about what to make of the start of the season for the Dallas Stars and seeing if they're still a Stanley Cup contender. So before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So Dallas has been a team that's flirted with 50 plus wins in multiple years, and last year actually was able to crack that mark, and they had an incredible year. Finished with the top spot in the Western Conference, and even though the season ended a little bit earlier than they liked, still a successful campaign. And then they had an off season where they had time to think about it, and people kind of viewed them as a contender going into the season. Now, after 27 games, it definitely appears that their path to the Stanley Cup final and winning Lord Stanley will be a little bit different. This is probably because it looks like it'll be a little bit harder for them. They are a team that will probably be worse, at least when it comes to points from last year to this year, as they're set to finish about 10 points less than what they did last season, and that means they will no longer have home ice advantage probably throughout the West, maybe even in their first round matchup if they make the playoffs, as they are currently third in the division. And it brings up a lot of talking points for this team going into the year, primarily being with are they even a contender anymore? Are they overrated? Are they overhyped? Whatever way you want to phrase it. So my answer to that is, if you feel like Dallas is going to be a disappointment, at least in terms of regular season success, you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. This is a team that actually is on pace to finish with just one less win than what they had last year, and overall their numbers look pretty good. They are 9th in the league for goals for per 60. They have the 5th best goals against per 60 in the NHL. They've got a top 5 PK percentage and are a team that doesn't really spend a whole lot of time with guys in the box. As for the power play percentage, you do imagine that they probably want things to be better, as they're in the bottom third category there, but they spend a decent amount of time on the man advantage and probably could get that percentage to rise as the season goes along. And you just know the talent's there. Their forwards, their defensemen, their goalie, they've got a little bit of everything going for them at the moment. This is a side that has had 6 games where they've scored 5 goals or more, so about 1 in every 4 games for Dallas. They are scoring 5 goals. And they are a team that's built a fortress in Dallas. I actually watched a video the other day by the hockey guy talking about teams that have the best home and away records and whatnot. So I checked on Natural Stat Trick. Dallas has the best points percentage on home, or at home ice, I should say. They are 11-2 in 13 games in Texas. Now, are they dealing with problems? Absolutely. Tyler Seguin could be out for 6 months, which is a big blow. Leader to the team, guy that was have a productive year, and just a player you hate to see out of the lineup in general if you're a fan or if you're part of the organization. And they are having kind of quiet years from some guys that they would expect maybe a little bit more from. Jason Robertson, if he has another down year after this year, might have to do a video kind of breaking it down, but he looks like he might not even crack the 30-goal mark. Goals aren't everything, but this was a player that scored 41 goals and then 46 goals not too long ago, so to see him possibly fail to crack 30 goals yet again would be a little bit odd. Then you have Wyatt Johnston, who is a young player that had 32 goals last year. He is on pace for about 18 this season, and again, kind of a cause for concern there. They are a team that, on top of all this, is 0-6 when trailing after the first period. So when they are trailing after 20 minutes, again, no W's. Now, I do think, again, with them playing the most or third most minutes when leading in the league, that's probably attributed to them either being tied or having the lead after 20 minutes of play. But you do want to see them kind of have a little bit of that ability to fight back, especially when the playoffs come around and you inevitably have a game where you're down 1 or 2-0 after the first 20. But another thing that's kind of odd, or at least a little bit concerning, is they are winless in the 2 games they played against Florida Panthers. It was a back-to-back, and it was early in the year. You might be able to give them the benefit of the doubt here, but the Panthers are a team they very well could meet in the Stanley Cup final. Back-to-back Eastern Conference champions, Stanley Cup champion, whatnot. They're good, and Dallas hasn't been able to pick up a win. Not saying that's the total story there, but these are some things that you could say are holding them back a little bit. And despite some of those things kind of going against them, I think in general you are looking at this Dallas team and saying they'll probably go out there and punch their playoff ticket. They are a side too that, like we've already talked about, has a lot of reasons to feel pretty good about the playoffs and their chances. They are a side that's got a lot of the numbers going their way. They've got a lot of depth, and they are a team that's seen playoff success before. 3 trips to the Western Conference final over the past 5 years, and they are a group that, they probably are pretty motivated after all the things that have gone wrong for them. They want to go out there and win the 2nd championship in franchise history for the Stars organization, and they might be able to do it this year. Now, is the path going to be harder for them? Probably looks like it will be, but I don't think that this is going to be the end-all be-all for them, and they very well are still in that room of capability of going out there and still winning the Central Division. Although realistically, I think what could happen is they could actually pass Winnipeg for the second spot and then have home ice advantage against somebody like the Jets in the first round, and then go on to possibly beat them, knock off a pretty good team in the first round, not have to worry about them. That would be a good thing for the Stars. Now, do they go out and win the Stanley Cup? Still a long way to go before we actually see what could happen there, but they very well could. Now, on the flip side, they could, have another disappointment where they didn't go on to the Stanley Cup final, or if they do, they lose to somebody like, ironically, the Florida Panthers, where they are winless against them right now. It's really tough to say at the moment, but I don't think that this season is really a disappointment for the Stars. Sometimes I think people get caught up too much in points and, place in the standings. I think probably the going from first to third would be more disappointing than going and having 10 points less, but that's not a humongous gap. I think there's a bigger gap between teams that finish with like 88, 90 points compared to teams that finish with like 100, 102 versus the sides that are, 112 versus 102. Not saying that there isn't a difference, in a season, but I feel like this Dallas team is still pretty good and they should maybe be able to go out there and get the job done. I have been hyping them up for so long. I feel like they are the new Carolina for me. If you've been watching this channel for a long time, I really thought some years Carolina was going to do it. Dallas has that feel. So anyway, that all being said, do you feel like the Stars are still contenders with their good numbers, or do you feel like with the regression we've seen, along with some injuries to guys like Tyler Seguin and potential future injuries going forward, they are going to be a side that is just not able to go out there and match up with some of the better sides in the league come playoff time? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. You have a great night. And you love hockey, alright? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.